talking about sort of being intentional when you're online. And, we sort of live in this time when, um, for Waldorf parents, we're pretty intentional about the media use that our children have, like maybe too intentional about it. Maybe we're like, and I don't want to say too intentional because I think that we need to be very intentional. We need to be very mindful. We need to be very um, restrictive, is even a good word for definitely for the younger ones. Definitely for the younger ones. I am constantly um, disturbed by what I know that some young children have access to. And disturbed because it makes me sad. It sort of takes them out of a place that and to another place that they shouldn't be yet. So we want to be really, um, really intentional about that, and really careful about sort of what we are exposing them to. With that in mind, though, often we forget about ourselves, and sort of we forget that holding this phone in our hand all the time um, or zoning out when we need to be present is sort of not the thing that we want to show them. So why am I bringing this up today? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, we are doing two different online programs, Eric and I, right now for our business, and so we are noticing ourselves needing to be more online and more present for that and balancing that with our kids. And our kids are at this point of shooting this video are 7 and 12. And so, especially our 12-year-old, he's like, hey, I want to do that too. Or we have like a communal tablet that they'll watch something on every now and again, or Sam will do his German lesson on that. And so it's very much like, oh, well, can I do that too? Because I see that you're doing it and I would like to do that too. And so we are very much in a place of, because of where he's at in his development, of being able to um, not justify, but have to say, well, mom and dad are doing this for work. And then we're also in a place of really needing to work on that work when they're not around. So that means we're up earlier. And that means that they're in bed at a good time so that we can do the rest of our work in the evening. And that means that our personal rhythm has really needed to be honed for in order for us to do the classes we're wanting to do and be able to still have integrity with our kids. And that's really what it's about to me, is really feeling like we have integrity when it comes to the because we're when you're an adult and and we have these children, it's not like do as I say, not as I do. It's also not we're also not asking permission, we're also not putting them in an adult place, but we also want to make sure that we're present and that we're deliberate in what we're doing. And it's very hard to do that when we are in a lot of places online. So I know a lot of moms are only on Instagram right now. They've left Facebook almost entirely. They might come in here to watch us, but we have a lot of moms that have left Facebook and they are now um, on Instagram, and they're catching us on YouTube. And they've actually asked us, like, we really want to stay away from Facebook. Help us stay away from Facebook. And so it's been a journey for, I think, a lot of those moms, because what happens often on Facebook, and I noticed this, and I sort of did a poll last week in our Ask Melissa group, not necessarily for this topic, but because I was trying to really understand. There are so many Waldorf groups out there, so many. There's Waldorf sales groups, and there's Waldorf curriculum groups, and there's Waldorf support groups. And we own or run a handful of those, but I was not aware of how many other groups there are out there. There's probably 100 Waldorf groups or close to it. And one thing that we were seeing, and Kelly and I we sort of try to watch, and we're not spying, but we're just want to see like where everybody's at barometer wise, and so that we can come to you with the products that you need, that we can hear that you're asking for, and also be able to take a look at what's going on in the community and find ways to support people that are struggling in those ways. And so we were just sort of watching how often something that is posted in one of our groups gets cross posted across. And so it made me think about, let's see, being very intentional about that time. And so I understand that moms go, well, I just didn't answer. So I'm just going to post this in 6 groups. Well, what I think that moms are not noticing or not realizing is it's the same people in all those groups. So you post it 6 different times, and you're really not looking for an authentic answer that way. So one of the things that, and I promise I'm not getting preachy. I'm just sort of telling you what has worked for us and worked for me when I'm looking for an answer for something. First things first, when I look for an answer for something, I don't turn to Facebook first. So I go within first, especially if it's a parenting question, or if it's a parenting question or a question about maybe a dietary question or a what is it that we need question or a question where we're struggling. Generally, do not go to Facebook first. Do not go to Google first. Go within first and ask myself. I definitely do some prayer and meditation work about that. And then I go from there. So if meditation tells me somebody that I know in one of my groups knows the answers to this, I will say, okay, which group? And then I will be led to there. And so it's about sort of slowing down and thinking about sort of where I'm going with that. And one thing that happens with that is when we do slow down, we we allow ourselves the space to come to the answer on our own, and or the space for the spirit to bring us the answer rather than just jumping into answers everywhere. It's about sort of slowing down, because one thing that I know about the spirit world is they know we know. Like sometimes we know the answer, and we might not like the answer that we know is inside us, or we might not trust that answer. So it's about sort of giving ourselves the confidence that we need for, to sort of really be able to go forward from there. So some of it I think is a confidence issue. And I want to just tell anybody who's watching, you are much more important than you think. You are much more, um, you are much more amazing than you think. You are you're an amazing mother. You doubt yourself too much. And you are an amazing wife, I'm sure. You might be a budding cook if you're not a great one, but you are really good at what you do, even if you need to hone it. Honing it and refining it does not mean you're not good at it. It means that you are learning. And that's all anybody can ask, is that you learn and that you do. When we know better, we do better. And so, with that process, we have to learn to go within, and then we have to learn to trust those answers. So, I suppose what I'm saying to you today is being intentional about being online means knowing why you're there, and knowing why you're sharing. One of the struggles that I've had is because we do run a business, and so I need to be online, and we're building an Instagram presence now, and that takes time. But it takes being online consistently. And so if you're in that spot, I totally understand. But really think about like how intentional you are about things that you're posting, why you're posting, how you're going about it, and the timing. What I'm loving is programs that allow me to schedule some posts so that I'm not completely tied to it all the time, and that's super helpful for me and helpful for my family. So if you're somebody who runs a business and you're posting because you're working to build up your business and to have good social reach, totally understand. So be deliberate about that, and look at some of those scheduling programs so that you can have the flexibility that you need for later on so that you can be with your kids and be more present. And then, one of the things that we often do as well is we might take pictures with kids throughout the day and then post them later so that it's not, because nothing is harder than, oh, you're doing something that's so cute, I'm going to take a picture of you, and then you're trying to post it at the same time. So I generally will take pictures, and then if there's stuff I want to post, I wait till I get back to the car or wait till we get home. And yes, that's not happening in the moment, and that's okay. It's okay in the moment. We're supposed to be with our kids. We're supposed to be with our family, and we're supposed to be intentional and deliberate about what we're doing. So I want you to not feel like there's this social pressure to document everything. And so, really, like I said, I like to take the pictures and then I'll post them sometimes later. So don't feel like you have to sort of be part of that social media race. And that's sort of what it feels like sometimes, is a race. Be intentional about where you are. If you're like us and you've got a class online and you've got other things that you have to do online, look at your own personal rhythm. Think about how you can move things around. We decided that we definitely need to get up a little bit earlier and we need to go to bed a little bit earlier. And we were already really pretty good at that. And so we were thinking about, well, where are we going to fit these things in? Because they were important things for our business development, but they were also things that we didn't feel like we wanted to have going on when we had kids around. And so we definitely were looking at getting up a little bit earlier and making sure everybody was in bed at a good time. So let's see, I've got a comment here regarding confidence. You made me think of my current mantra. You must have the courage to be very far from perfect to begin with. I think that's a good one. And it's Steiner. I think that we see some of these beautiful pictures that people post on Instagram, and we get intimidated. And again, it's just kind of like this, it's the same thing that I told people about blogging 5 years ago. You don't know what's going on the other side of that camera, and it's really easy to compare ourselves to somebody else. Really easy. Oh, I'm sitting on my foot, so sorry, let me move myself. There we go. It's really easy to compare ourselves to somebody else. And I still find myself doing it. I was sitting in church yesterday, um, and I sort of have the mom woes sometimes. I go, oh, I wish I could have all 5 of them in the same place at the same time. And Eric laughs at me and he's like, yeah, that ain't happening. Not necessarily regarding church, but just it's so hard to get, once they start leaving home, it's really hard to get them to all come back at the same time. And so I sort of have these ideas about ways to conspire to get them all here at the same time. But no, so I was sitting there and I saw this family and in front of us, and they were visiting because there's always somebody visiting. Like our congregation is in the probably the busiest area of San Diego. So any one given Sunday, a third of the congregation is probably visitors. And so there were these people in front of us that had 6 children, and they had a bunch of teenagers and then a little one. And so I just found myself thinking, oh, I wish I could get. And then I went, oh, wait a minute. The devil is in the comparison. Do not go there because those kids might be rotten and they may not be, but that mom might be struggling in other ways. So, this idea of comparing ourselves to, I wish I could just get X, or I wish that my life looked like X, really robs you of your own life and your own amazing things that you are giving. And so, do not allow pictures or other people to like creep into your brain and think that you need those things. You are good at what you do. There's a favorite quote of mine that I learned years ago from Wayne Dyer, and whether or not you believe in God or believe in Satan, it doesn't matter because you could put in your own words or your own nouns here instead. And the quote goes, "The mind is Satan's lawyer, and the heart is a servant unto God." So, the darkness likes to creep in and make us think that we need to compare ourselves, and the light reminds us that's the light part is for our heart. That's the part that reminds us that we are good enough and that everybody is on their own path, and that we are worthy of having happiness and worthy of showing happiness and worthy of being in a place where we feel good about our parenting and our partnering. And that comes from being intentional. I love that quote. I think that that quote is it's something that I've hung on to for years. I really started living within me when probably 15 years ago, when I really started being very mindful of my thoughts. And when our mind just keeps going and going and going, and we are comparing and stressing, and then I say, go grab some GABA or make yourself some chamomile tea, get some lavender out, because honestly, that stressing and that mind that won't stop, it is often not producing anything good. And that does not mean that you shouldn't think. It means that you shouldn't overthink. Overthinking is definitely the devil's playground. And I say that loosely because again, I'm not saying things in a religious context. I'm saying things sort of in a spiritual context. But I want you to all know that, like, being intentional about being online is all about sort of where you're coming from. So have that centered space every day. Every day, take the time to center before you turn on your phone. Take the time to center before you check in on Facebook. Take the time to, especially Facebook today. Whew, these days, Facebook can be such a toxic place. Take the time to center before you hop on Instagram and make sure you feel good about yourself. Only follow accounts that make you feel good. Do not follow accounts that make you feel guilty, stressed out, or like you're not enough. So I'm going to challenge you to go through your Instagram today and your Facebook. Go through your Facebook, unfollow people that don't make you feel good. You don't have to block people. I mean, that's the beauty of Facebook, is that you can go through, and if there's somebody that is part of your family that would be like, hey, why did so and so block me? Just unfollow them. Just click the little unfollow. Then you don't have to see their posts. You don't have to sort of go through any of that with them. You don't have to go through any family drama. And if it's somebody that's a family member, you can always go and check in on their feed once a week and see if they've posted any pictures. But you don't have to listen to any political stuff that comes up or anything that doesn't make you feel good. Listen, I did that a long time ago. I have people in my life that I love, but I don't love their politics. And so I just go and I check in on them on a regular basis. Don't worry, Mom, it's not you. Um, just saying that. But there are people in my life that I love, but I don't love what they do and what they say. And so, I will go and I will check in on them once a week. And then the rest of the time, it's not in my feed. The other thing I would say about Facebook is, if you are trying to be intentional about Facebook, maybe don't even go to your feed. I mean, that's one the beauty of groups, is that you can just go right to your groups and right to your messages, and you do not even have to look at your feed. I will say that just from a business perspective, the feed like wears me out. And so I often do not look at somebody's feed. So I'll have somebody message me and say, I don't know if you saw my Facebook. And I'll say, nope, I didn't. Because unless you set it in a group and tagged me, I probably didn't see it. Generally, the only people that I see in my feed are those people that are like in that first, and it's because I pull up Facebook, and before I can get to the groups, I see something that either my husband said or that Kelly said or one of my kids said, because they're my first people. Otherwise, I don't see what's going on. And so it's really easy to be able to do that. You can just go right to groups. I'm super bummed that they got rid of the groups app, because the groups app was golden. You just had to have groups that way. You didn't have to have everything else. But you don't have to be everywhere on Facebook. And on Instagram, I would unfollow people that make you feel bad. Not because, and you may go back and end up following them later. I mean, that's the beauty of Instagram too. You can just follow, unfollow. You don't have to block somebody. And so, I mean, you can block people, but you can just go and you can just go and unfollow the people that are making you feel bad. And it's not that they're making you feel bad on purpose. It just might be that you're in a place right now where you're not ready. You're not as confident as you need to be. And while you're building that confidence, the last thing you need to see is somebody's perfect Waldorf house where they made amazing food that you are ready to make or aren't liking, or they have values that maybe you wish you had, but you're not there yet. And so if you are not being inspired and you're instead being made to feel badly, again, not because that person's trying to do that, just because of where you are, then unfollow people. It's totally okay, and pare things down. I think here's what's hard, and I'm going to tell you, this is just like the from the person who's a user and an advertiser at the same time. What's hard is that as an advertiser, as somebody who uses Facebook ads to get in front of people, um, it's sad when people block me that way, or when people are blocking their feed, because I want to be in their feed. So, but it's also makes you want to be more organic about things. And because Facebook changes its algorithm regularly, and now some of those things are happening with Instagram as well, we have to be more intentional. And it's all about your community and who you're engaging with. And so I find that to be a great way, if you're a business owner and you're listening, a great way to really get to know the people that you're serving is to continually engage with them, and then you are more apt to be in front of them when they're on social media. And use instant messenger, use direct messages, use those ways to sort of connect with people, and use the personal ways like Insta stories, or and I don't do Facebook stories, but I know a lot of people do. I haven't cracked that one yet, just because there's so much to learn. Holy cow, so much to learn. Anyway, so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I feel like if we can be intentional online, it will change how we are acting with our children. It will change how we are feeling about that space of being online, and it will really change how we're feeling about ourselves. And I think that that's really important. Having good self-image is, I think, super important. So when we are working through things, we can feel good about things. And so my challenge to you this week is to be intentional when you're online. And that means you continually sort of ask yourself, what am I doing here? What's my goal? And oh, my goal is to, I'm going to ask this question, I'm going to answer this question. And listen, it's okay to zone out at the end of the day if you want to hang out on the computer for, an hour, or your phone for an hour or something, whatever. That's okay. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about being intentional when you're on, and you should be holding the space, and you should be in a space where um, you are present. And it's so easy for these devices to pull us away from being present. And so being aware of that, I think, is super helpful. It's helping me a lot to be more aware of it. And I'm guessing it will probably help you all too.